it's almost goodbye now. This is the final film of RIFF this year, and we have with us the director, Bradley Lustre, and this is a Q&A. I'm going to be your moderator. Hopefully, this is the last one, so don't save any questions for later. We're hoping to, see how it's going. And I'll start things off, and then you guys just join in, and I'll look for you. There's a big light in my eye, so I'll try and, make sure that I see you, but just wave your hand and we'll get this going. I guess, this is a really beautiful film. Thank you for it. And I guess to start things off, what was the genesis of the film? What was the impetus to make this, to tell this story?
I was working on I asked an actress I knew if I could, if she wanted me to write something for her. I had done that with a friend of hers, and she was like, yeah. And then we were just in touch for a long time, and I was editing another film, and then I had her write her dreams down and stuff, and she had a dream that the film that I was writing was going to be called Blood. Yeah. And I had drinks with Sion that night in Berlin, and I told him the story. I'm like, I'm writing this thing, and he's like, it has to be called Blood. Don't change the title. So that's where the title came from. But I didn't really know what the film was going to be about, and I had wanted to work with Chiyoko, my friend in Japan.
Yeah.
And then that sort of brought it there. And then this actress's husband had passed away, and my wife and my whole family ended up moving into our house, just because we move around a lot, and my parents died when I was a kid, and so it was the one thing we had that we really shared. And she's a really sort of transformative actress, and I thought it would be maybe more interesting to try to do something that's really close to home, because I was kind of watching her around the same time, 2 years after the death, and she was trying to fall in love again, but it was this thing. So I asked her if I could write about that, and she was like, "Yeah." And then it ended up we were just about to shoot, and then it was just too close for her. So then we had to start all over, and then we got Carla, who did this amazing job. Yeah.
And so you said you wanted to work with a friend from Japan that you had talked to before, but there's anyone who's been in a couple of relationships in their life know that every time you enter, it's almost like entering a new culture, and that's what this film kind of is. Is there something that to make this huge juxtaposition, to jump from one place to the other, this almost dreamlike quality throughout the film? Is that the mixture of jumping into something new, and then also that you're kind of dreaming, and even your past is a dream? Is this something that was meant, or is it just the whole film feels like a dream to me? I don't know. I'm
Good. Yeah, thanks.
Step into the light, Brad. Come on.
Oh God, now I get what you're saying. The cinematographer and I had this sort of agreement that the whole film was, not that the whole film is a dream, but that the experience of the movie is if you would meet her and you would go, oh, what did you do that summer? And then she'd be like that movie, it's what you remember of something that you did during a certain time in your life, and how those memories are non-chronological, and they're just certain moments of certain things, and in that you have dreams, and so I think part of your memories are the dreams you had at that time, and I was just going to say something. But I think it was is trying to capture those, that it's also, for me, it's trying to, it's a love story, and then it's well, how did you guys fall in love? And it's not always just one, oh, he made me pancakes and I was great, it was it's always these little things that you really can't put your finger on. It's these small things, and so that's what we were looking for, is the small moments of when somebody's falling in love. So
yeah. And other than just the connection to Japan, personally, is there was there another kind of cinematic reason that you were choosing these two things? It's interesting to see the two places, and then how you didn't fetishize either one. So they almost seem like they could be in the same place, even though they're obviously vastly different places.
Thank you. I made another film here. My friends were like, "Don't rape the landscape." So I'm always a little wary. Although we did film Icelandic landscape a lot more in this one than we did in my last film. But Yeah, no, I had, my wife and I had lived in Japan, and I wanted to make a film there.
Yeah.
And I knew Chieko, the choreographer, and I had told her, we met 20 years ago. And then I was like, do you want to work on something together someday? And she was like, yeah. And then I was like, okay, well, let's just like make a box, you know, like a mental box, and we'll put ideas in it. And then, so I called her when I started this film, and I said, I think this is the box. It's time to open the box. So it was really her that brought me there. And then that's also why she's sort of part of the movie, too. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just going to do a check. Do we have a question in the audience? Do you have your hand up?
Me?
Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah, I'll go for it, man. Amazing movie, man. I love the still moving frames.
Oh, thank you.
Was there like a reason you chose Iceland and Japan? Is there like a similarity you see there? Or?
My wife and I moved to Japan and lived there for a year, and then we moved from Japan to Iceland and lived there for 3 years, which was just kind of a coincidence.
Yeah.
I mean, really, to be honest, it was about casting the guy who was going to play her husband. And we were going to use Diego Luna, so we were going to shoot in Mexico City. And then COVID hit, and then and you guys were available, you know. And also, I mean, at that point too, it's like I wanted to be able to. Like the scenes are about, like that part of her dreams is kind of like when she remembers her husband. For me, it's not just like you remember like your memories of this person you're in love with, but it's like all the people you were friends with, because I think all those relationships change in a slightly different way when you're not with that person anymore. And so it's like you kind of miss like the whole environment of all the people. And I wanted to go somewhere, like in Mexico, we were going to use like all Diego's friends and shoot in all these places so that he'd be really familiar with the people around him. And it's really about like capturing those friendships that are on the edges of them. And I knew if I came here, I had a lot of friends. And so that's what we did. We just came here and then we went to just different friends' houses and filmed. And it was really wonderful because it was like, it's such a different energy in everybody's house and such. And then that's what we're trying to capture. Yeah.
Yeah, Sean.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Thank you for that. Congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
On the title, I'm very glad to see that it works.
Okay, thank you.
And there is a moment in the film where I realized that it works. Dreams are always right, as you know. But it was when he said that he didn't feel anything in his heart on the date.
Mm.
And then I thought, yeah, usually, and maybe especially when we're talking about cinema, the word blood brings drama or violence or whatever, but it is really the opposite thing. It is the life streaming through our veins. And I thought maybe what we're seeing through the film is that her bloodstream is flowing again. Slowly she's thawing, and her heart starts beating, and throughout the film we see her blood warm up and the heart start pumping.
We should have talked a long time ago. That was great.
But it's there. But so
Yeah.
this was just like a comment on the title. And then I just would like to ask you about how you use mirroring, because obviously that is a big part of it. And it's interesting that you were thinking about Mexico City, because now it's obvious that Iceland and Japan can mirror each other very nicely, two volcanic islands and all of that. And then there is so much mirroring in the film, and it's so much about responding.
Yeah, I think it's like when you have something like that, it's just in the back of your head a little bit, like that it works with this particular movie. I mean, I like this sort of twinning of things. There was a weird coincidence. There was a David Lynch documentary before this, and I saw part of it, and I'm a huge fan of his, and he always has these sort of characters and things that are mirrored in the film. Yeah, I don't know. It was just something, I don't know how to say, just like something you have in the back of your mind, and then when you're working, it comes up. The Marx Brothers dance was the starting point for my coming up with a plan for what Chieko and I were going to do for the choreography. I mean, she did the choreography, but I said, what about this Marx Brothers scene? You guys know this is from Duck Soup. If you haven't seen it, it's just amazing. And so that, led into how all the mirroring and all the dancing is and stuff like that. Yeah.
Do we have some more questions here? Yeah, right over here on the left.
Okay.
You're right.
You told me told us to not save any questions for later. So there's a lot of stuff going through my head now. First, is this a part of the whole artwork to place this film as the last of the festival, like in the sense of letting go, going into a new culture, etc.? And then I wanted to inquire about the goldfish in the rice pot. What do they mean? And is there a story behind, like, Toshi's hair always hanging into his face versus the woman's hair always being tied back?
Oh, that's a great question. I'll start with that. I had the first film I did was in Iceland, and we showed it in Korea. And the Q&A, they brought out a desk. It was like an hour and a half. The Q&A was longer than the movie, and it was like they really intense questions, as yours were, in a really good way. And somebody was like, "Your character's got short hair, and your wife has short hair. Do you have a short hair fetish?" You know, and then ever since that moment, now I'm like, my entire life, I'm like, "Oh God, do I?" You know. So the hair was a total coincidence. Actually, I do have a short hair fetish. I'll admit it now. And Carla's amazing with short hair, and so it's like, she's like, "You want me to cut my hair, don't you?" And I was like, "Yes, please, 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 please." And she's like, "No." You know, because I'm like an actress, and it's like, you know, no. And then, right, you know, we waited to shoot in Iceland, and then she calls me and she's like, "Hey, guess what? I cut my hair." So it's short, at least in the Icelandic part. But that was a coincidence. Toshi's hair is always like that. I found him, somebody had sent me a YouTube video of him playing music. They were fans, and then we found him and talked him into doing the movie. So. He's like that. Which is what's great with working like with a non-actor. You sort of just try to capture the beauty and the spirit of that person. I'm sorry. The other question was
the goldfish.
Oh, the goldfish. It's kind of like the only image in the film that was an actual dream that I had. I had a dream that there was this sort of goldfish in the bowl that, like, when you're kind of you touch the water and measure how deep it is with your fingers. And there's these goldfish, so then I was like, oh, okay, well, that was just an image that I had, and so it's supposed to be just, like, unexpected, I guess.
The couple finally creates this little threesome, and then to see the three fish in a bowl, you're like, okay, they decided this is their.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. We picked three fish. Yeah. There's like certain things. It was like, yeah, we wanted three fish, and then the way it worked out with her. In the moment, and then when she's talking about the fish and stuff, Fuchan, we picked three fish for them, and then when we had it, we filmed it for a long time. We're like, maybe we could do some of this, credits or something. So it's that kind of your piece of it. You had one other question, maybe not. Good.
And the festival.
Oh, I don't know anything about the end of the festival.
Yeah, I don't know how they curate the films in this festival, or if they are in fact curated. It could be random.
Anybody can get it. Just anybody.
Yeah.
Somebody back there.
Yeah, wait, there was someone here at the back. Yeah, you at the back, and then we'll get back to you.
Yeah,
that's right.
So thank you for the film. And I wanted to ask, was it difficult to shoot in Japan during the pandemic? First question. Second question, like the main character, so Carla, the actress, was she meant to be narcoleptic? So like falling asleep all the time? I don't know if it's a stupid question, but I actually thought this through the whole film.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
No, she was. The first times, it's like, for me, it was like jet lag. When you get jet lag, you're out,
Mm-hmm.
But like, she falls asleep later on. It's one of those, in the movie there's going to be a lot of dreams, and so you don't want her constantly waking up and falling asleep, but like she has to sometimes, you need to see it sometimes, so you're trying to find a certain balance. He slept more than she did, on her in the train and stuff. And then I can't go backwards. What was the other question?
Shooting in Japan.
Oh, shoot. Oh, it wasn't during COVID. I shot in 2019. We finished in November. It's one of those things you look back and it was like, wow, we just finished. And when we were there, like if you had an allergy, like the cat, a lot of the crew was allergic to the cat, so they would just wear a mask, because it was like good for, try it out, it's good for allergies apparently. And sometimes if somebody's got a cold or something in Japan, they wear a mask. And I was like, oh, this is going to be such an interesting cultural thing that people are going to go, wow, people wear masks like that in public? That's really interesting. And now, then I started cutting it, and I'm like, people are going to be like, what the fuck? Why aren't everybody wearing a mask? Everybody's dying in this movie. When I first started editing, it's when COVID hit, and it just looked like, I'm like, they're hugging, So, it wasn't during COVID, and shooting in Japan was a joy.
Yeah. You talked about working with non-actors. Were there a lot of non-actors in this movie? And if so, were there a lot of challenges? And were there language barriers or?
All of that, yeah.
Yeah. All of that?
Yeah, everything. Like, Ueno's English is pretty good, but not great. He plays Toshi, the main guy. Chiyuko's English is worse, the choreographer. So whenever we talk, it's like half hand gestures and stuff like that, but that's what's so joyous about knowing her. And then Fuchan, the little kid, we had that scene with the Down syndrome kids, and I had a group that was helping me find the Down syndrome kids, and one of the guys had a daughter, because I was casting, and they had brought in a lot of actresses, like little kid actors who are normally not very good, because their parents are prodding them. And he had a daughter who had Down syndrome. She's 9 and she's about 6, Futaba. And I met her and she's like that, and then walked off. She doesn't speak any English, obviously. And so that's how I found her, to cast her for that part. And the grandmother, we were driving, looking for a place to shoot. We had some extra time in the countryside, and we all fell asleep in the van. And then we had passed through a town, and then I woke up and I was like, just the next person you see, just pull over and we'll just do an interview. She'll just interview whoever we see on the side. If it's a mechanic, she'll just do like a little scene, with this person. And there's this old lady in front of her house. And so we ran up and we're like, can we film you? And she's like, oh, okay. And then in Japanese, because I had a translator.
I loved her, man.
She became the grandmother in the movie. I was trying to cast somebody, and the line producer was the whole shoot looking for an old woman, and like not near the airport because the planes would be taking overhead, and you have to get permission from the family for the grandmother to be in the movie, and it just all fell through. And then we were like, what about that lady we found by the side of the road? And she's, it's just such a gift when you find somebody that can just give themselves to the movie and just kind of, that's my favorite thing about working with the non-actors, when they're just giving something honestly. So, and then Issei Ogata, the old guy, he's my favorite. He was my dream person to get for that. I first saw him at RIFF in The Sun by Subarov.
Right.
He's like the Bill Murray of Japan. He's huge.
Yeah.
It was really hard to get him, and it was like, and then we finally met, and he's like, I don't speak English. I can't play a translator. His parts are translated. And I'm like, oh, come on, let's have a cigarette. And I thought when I pulled him aside, and then we went and talked, and I'm like, oh man, he doesn't speak any English at all. And then we came back, and he was like, old people in Japan, sometimes they want to be helpful, so they come up to tourists and they try to help, but they're not really good at it. He's like, I could do that. And I'm like, yeah. So it was like, he's so. Yeah, he's just, I'm filming, I'm like, what is he doing? He's like, "Arr!" And then when you watch it later, it was so awesome to work with somebody that has this sort of grandiose great talent. And Carla, the girl who plays the lead, is an actress, and she's phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the signal that the Q&A is wrapping up, but I'm sure if people want to bother you out in the hallway, that's fine too,
yeah.
Correct? Okay, so thank you very much, and please, a big round of applause. We hope you enjoyed it, and see you outside. Thank you.